Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel here at TrinFx with another weekly analysis looking at the market. For those of you that are new, my name is the homie Fletcher, owner and founder of the TrinFx YouTube and Discord channel, where I post my trades as well as help aspiring traders to become better with their overall trading and just developing their strategy and getting a better sense of the market. All right, and as I said just now, this is a weekly analysis looking at the week ahead for things that we do have coming up, what we could expect from the markets, and looking at trade setups that we may possibly see or get into. All right, and this is something I like to do at the starting of every week, usually on Saturday evenings, maybe Sunday mornings. I'll take a look at the market while it's closed and look at potential setups and also the fundamentals that we do have. All right, so I want to start off with the fundamentals. Okay, and just taking a quick look here, we can see that we do have some high impactful fundamentals coming up this week, right? So we have a very news heavy week starting off here in July, and we also have NFP. As you know, NFP is on the first Friday of every month, right? So every new month on the Friday we do have NFP from the US economy. So taking a quick look, we have CHF CPI. So we have CPI numbers coming out slightly higher than the previous. That's what it looks like the consensus is. So we'll see what actually happens here. And we have unemployment. Well, we have euro unemployment for certain parts of the euro area, Austria. But taking a closer look, it looks like only the CPI numbers for the CHF is really the most high impactful thing coming up. And then we do have ISM and S&P global manufacturing numbers, all right, looking here to be less than the previous. So the consensus is less, and this would have an impact on indices such as XPX 500 as well as NAS 100 and US 30. So that's something that we could possibly take a look at. We have RBA interest rates. So for the Aussie dollar, we do have interest rates coming up, expecting to see a 25 base point increase from the Australian Central Bank. All right, we also have retail sales for the AUD as well. These are some of the more so high impactful things we would be taking a look at here on the interest rate decision. All right, and I'm not expecting too much movement on the interest rate decision, even though that we do have sort of an increase looking to happen. And usually when we do have an increase in interest rates, that is usually bullish for whatever currency we are looking at. However, there are some factors that may impede on that bullishness, on that bullish news, if it does come out as expected or even higher. All right, so that's something we'll take a look at, looking at the AUD pairs. On Wednesday, we have FOMC minutes. So we'll have the release of minutes discussing what we could potentially see in the future, because we do have projections from the US economy to expect interest rates to increase at least twice again for the remainder of the year, right? And we also do have a very strong US economy, so this is something that can likely happen in the near future as well. So this is all bullish for the dollar itself. We'll be taking a look at that as well as the week continues on what we see happening. We have unemployment numbers. Sorry, not unemployment numbers. We have ADP, employment change. We also have initial jobless claims, and we have some JOLTS job opening news coming out, right? So again, higher than expected. For the jobless claims, we are expecting a consensus higher than the previous, right? And for the JOLTS job openings, we are expecting a lesser than the previous, right? And these are bearish factors if it does come out as a consensus, or even in this case for the jobless claims, if it comes out as more than the consensus, that is bad for the dollar. And for the JOLTS job openings, if this comes out lesser than the consensus or the previous, then that is also dovish for the dollar. All right, but we do have a very strong overall booming economic situation with the Biden administration placing job openings and such stuff like that. There is a lower unemployment, right? Unemployment has been very low. The economy is doing very well. It's booming really essentially right now, despite the recovery from COVID. Inflation is also down compared to the other economies, major economies, the G7, as you would hear. right? Inflation is quite down. It's like one of the leading in terms of economies with the lowest inflation right now. So what they're doing and what they're implementing is really working. So there's no real fears of recession or anything like that, which is again very bullish for the dollar. So with that being said, I would like to take a closer look at these numbers as they do come out, especially if it comes out as a consensus, or in this case more than the previous for the jobless claims and less than the previous for the job openings. I'll actually be taking a closer look on that, because that doesn't necessarily mean that we'll see a bearish move on the dollar itself. We may see some sort of a trace back into long bullish, continuation for the dollar. So that is something I'll actually really be paying attention to. Unemployment, we do have that coming up for the CHF on Friday, and again we have some CAD news as well as the more heavily looked at news event. We have LFP, right? So LFP looking to be less than the previous, right? The consensus is lesser than that. And for the CAD, unemployment numbers slightly higher, unemployment rate slightly higher, full-time employment change looks to be higher than the previous, right? So this is great, right? Even though it's negative, this negative number is greater than the negative to consensus previous, sorry. So this would be great if we do see that increase for full-time employment, and the employment change we're expecting to see an increase as well, which would be great, right? So those are some of the stuff that we are paying attention to coming up this week. So that's fundamentally. Looking here on the charts technically, I am getting more intrigued by gold and the gold movement overall. As you can see here, we did have a bullish move on gold, all right? So basically we had a bearish dollar, and we could actually take a look at the fundamentals from last week, right? So let's just take a look from the 20th to the 30th. Let's apply that. And this was coming to the Friday, right? So let's take a quick look here. All right, so Friday we didn't have much actually for June. Friday we didn't have any real USD news or anything like that, right? We did have the jobless claims on the Thursday. All right, jobless claims coming out lesser than expected, right? And also we had the GDP growth numbers as well, and pending home sales, right? So all of this would have contributed to the bullish gold movement, as we saw sort of a negative outturn on the dollar with those news events. We saw that bullishness take place for the dollar here. I mean, sorry, so for the gold here, right? For this gold cross pair. Now with that being said, moving into this week, I am still more so on the dollar bullish side. So let's just take a quick look at the DXY overall. I do think, let me just remove this drawing here. Taking a look from the 4-hour on the daily, right? On the daily, we can see that we did have this sort of a pullback here, and gold, sorry, not gold, the DXY gradually coming back up, right? Now we need to be paying attention to this level here. All right, so this is a level of resistance we need to be paying attention to, as we do see the DXY come back up, the dollar gaining, more steam. We overall do have a bullish dollar. All right, so that is something I'm taking into consideration. Now, if you want to be more conservative, you can't wait to see this actually push above this area here, this area of resistance, or this previous area price broke down out of, right? And again, this was on the Friday coming to the market close and all of that. We saw that break the downside. Now, continuing forward, I do think we could possibly break back higher, as we overall do see that sort of bullish dollar movement. And how does that concern gold, right? So gold, you can see that they're moving basically perpendicular to each other, right? They're moving, not perpendicular, but they move in the opposite direction of each other. So with gold, I am expected to see this actually pull back and continue lower. In terms of entries, what I'll be looking at, if we can see price pull lower below this level here, that would be great. If we get some sort of rejection, that'll give sort of a confirmation to see price continue even lower, right? So that is something I'm paying attention to. And if we do see price actually pull back into this level here, that continuation seems more likely for me. All right, and at that point, I would enter the trade around this area and just leave that running, because I do think we could continue all the way down back here. Right, so that is something I'm taking into consideration. Overall, we could see on the gold chart as well, very strong bearishness. Price has been moving quite strongly to the downside in favor of the US dollar. So again, we do have a strong US economy, and that's why we're seeing the gold commodity actually being sold off here. With that being said, this was just a pullback coming to the market close. As you know, it is the ending of the month and leading into a new month. These are sort of the market movements that you do get during that time. So yeah, at this point, I would say this is just like an extreme pullback, waiting for like sellers to step in and take control of this market and continue price moving downwards, right? So this is sort of my outlook on this when it comes to gold. Other things I'm paying attention to, some such as AUDCAD and AUDUSD. These are the things I'm paying more attention to. I do think with AUDUSD here, we could continue moving to the downside. Again, overall, very strong bearishness, sort of a pullback here coming to the market close, right? Off of this rejection zone, right? So this resistance zone here, right? Support to resistance as price broke down, came back up here. I just think overall we could see a continuation moving downwards, right? Now, with that, we need to be careful because again, we do have coming up this week. Yeah, we do have coming up this week interest rates, right? We have the interest rates for the AUD, so that is something we need to be paying attention to. Now, I am not expecting a heavy bullish movement from that news event. Again, the AUD with the Australian economy has been sort of lagging in terms of their interest rates increase, as well as some other underlying and fundamental issues contributing to the overall weak AUD. So with that being said, I don't think we would get much of a movement off of that news event alone. If we'd had some such as employment change or an increase in employment, lower unemployment rate, something like that, then at that point when we do have the interest rate decision come out, I would say that's when you need to be a little bit more careful. But for now, just since it's just that news event alone, I would say, okay, I'll stick with my bias to continue seeing, more sell pressures on AUD-USD, right? So again, entering into this, I'm waiting for price to actually pull past down into this level here, right into that entry zone, and more likely see that continuation going downwards, right, with the overall trend. Okay, so we pulled down, had this pullback right into this resistance zone, support and resistance, and I think we could see that continuation moving down. Fundamentally, we don't have anything that give evidence to seeing the AUD actually increase or continue moving upwards. So for now, my bias is to the sell side. Same thing for AUDCAD, sort of like the same analysis, taking a look at the daily to the 4-hour and go down. At the daily time frame, we can see this very strong bearishness into the market as price pulled back here. We saw those bearish days coming in, right? Even as we saw, sort of like a range happening right here, we saw price pull down and we continued respecting into this level, right? So this major level here of support and resistance right now. Overall, I do think looking here at the daily and the 4-hourly, we could see that continuation to the downside. We do, again, need to pay attention to the fundamentals, especially when it comes to the Canadian dollar. So I'm not too keen on taking anything right now on this. If I was to, enter a trade, maybe, you're feeling a little anxious to get into a trade, then this would be something I think would be, worth taking. However, just keep in mind, again, we do have other factors affecting the price action movement. So I wouldn't be too hasty on entering this. I'll be more comfortable entering once we see price pull below this area. That at that point we could say, all right, the sell pressure is more evident into this market and we should see a continuation of that. If we're looking at an area to target, I would say right around here is really a nice target area, or even right here into this sort of a resistance zone that price push past, right? So that is something I think really we could really pay attention to. All right, so if price moves lower, get sort of a rejection off of this zone, that'll be like a nice entry area to continue moving downwards. All right, so that's sort of my take on that. In terms of other things that I'm looking at, guys, really, I don't want to rush into the week, right? So 80 gold, and oh yeah, let's take a look at the XPX and the NAS, right? So let's take a look at XPX first, right? So we see that the S&P 500 really strong to the upside. Again, coming to that dollar weakness for whatever reason on Friday, we had that dollar weakness set in. We saw this actual price movement here, right? So price pushed up higher on the S&P, right? Taking a look at into this week, one thing I think we should pay attention to is that one thing that we should pay attention to is that ISM manufacturing employment, right? PMI, and as well as S&P global manufacturing PMI, right? So these are some stuff that will affect the indices themselves, right? So pay attention to these numbers here. This is coming on Monday at 10 a.m. So yeah, just a little heads up. And that will really affect the S&P 500 overall. Totally, I do think I'm more on the sell side of this, but that's with, you know, paying attention to the market movement, right, with the price action. Overall, we're not going to neglect the fact that price pulled all the way up past this area, right? And taking a look at the 4-hour and the 1-hour, we could possibly see a continuation of that movement. Maybe price uses this area as a retest just to continue that higher movement, right? That is a possibility. However, again, paying attention to the fundamentals, I'd like to see what that ISM numbers, that S&P number is going to be, right? If it's positive, then that's great, and we'll see an increase on this. If it's negative, or it comes out, you know, less than what we expected in terms of the consensus, then I do think that would give us sort of an indication to see price move even lower here on the S&P 500 and NAS, right? So that's sort of my take. If I'm looking to enter this, I would like to see price pull below this area first, sort of giving us a pullback on that overall top resistance zone. And yeah, just a continuation lower seems like a probable trade setup, right? So that's something I'll pay attention to. All right, guys. Another thing, Euro USD. Right, so Euro USD is one of those heavily traded pairs in the foreign exchange market by a lot of new traders, seasonal traders, veterans, or whatever the case is. Right, it's one of the most heavily traded pairs. With that being said, it's also one of the most manipulated pairs. So be careful when you actually trade in Euro USD. Right, I already stated what my bias is. I'm more on like the USD buying side right now, so I am biased to see this continue moving lower. However, to looking for a possible entry, I would say seeing price actually pull below this area here would give us sort of a better indication to see that continuation movement. All right, so that's sort of my take on what I'm waiting on to see in this case on this particular pair. All right, guys. So again, we are seeing that bearishness coming into these markets overall. So you need to pay attention to that as well, the overall trend, what we could expect to see, and you know, areas of pullbacks and stuff like that. So AUDUSD, AUDCAD, those are like my key things I'm paying attention to. I really want to trade AUDUSD and possibly like hold this long term until like the end of the week. I do think this is a possible play out all the way to the downside, right? So a full 11 percentile gain, right? Risk to reward, I think that is very much achievable here for the week, as well as with gold, right? With gold, same thing, right? 1 hour and 30 minutes. So just looking for that pullback into this area. Good entry point. At that point, if we do pull back more, right, if we do close below, that continuation seems like a more highly probable thing that we could see possibly playing out all the way down to this area here. So that is, you know, my two main trades I'll be looking for and like looking to get into. And yeah, that's sort of my take on the markets right now. I am limiting my trades and what I do take for the time being, as it is summer. It's coming up to summer vacation, stuff like that. So markets can be a little slow, be a little erratic as well. This week, that has passed hasn't been the best week for me, and I'm being completely honest with you guys. I lost like around 8% in total for that week, and that's like, you know, for some that'll be like, wow, that's a lot, but that's 8% compared to every other week we're making like 12, 10, 15%, stuff like that, right? So taking a small L, and this is like the first L that we've taken in a week since, for months, right? Since like long months ago, right? So it's like the first L week in, I want to say, 8 months or so, right? So yeah, it's really upsetting, especially when you trade in a system that works like 80% of the time. You know, in situations like that, you can become, you know, a little forceful with your trades. I found myself actually doing this when I ended up losing one trade, and it's like, wow, end up losing a trade, and then the trade actually went into my favor, right? Such a trade was, I think it was AUDCAD, right? AUDCAD was one actual trade itself, like just like that, right? I was waiting for price to come into this area here. I look into it, like actually pull back up a little bit to make some profits, right? And the AUDUSD and AUDJPY, I think as well. AUDJPY was one too, right? Price pulled back all the way up here and then started going down. I think my trade was somewhere right into this area here, and I was looking to see price actually come down a little bit, right? And I'll probably make another video separate reviewing last week's trades, right? But yeah, it was upsetting because it was like, okay, you lost the trade, and then the next day the trade actually plays out in your favor, and it's kind of upsetting to see that, especially when you have a system that works quite well, right? And you have people that's counting on you to help make them profit and stuff like that. So it's sort of like the pressure is there as well on you to perform well. And yeah, it can play with your mindset and stuff like that. And it's something that hasn't really happened to me, right? And like that, and like in that scenario, it's not something that happened to me. I don't focus on I have to make this, that for other people, anything. Say I focus on the trades that I do see and take, and, you know, follow my strategy and plan and send out the trading signals and stuff like that, and it plays out really well, and we all end up, you know, making some profits and stuff like that. But when you start like taking an L after an L, the market's just, you know, it's your analysis is there, your analysis plays out, but it just doesn't play out when you take the trade, or that moment when you take the trade, right? It just doesn't play out in that moment, but plays out afterwards. It could be very upsetting, and it could mess with your psychology. I found myself in that situation, and yeah, I just want to say, like, to any of you guys that are going through that, right? You take a trade, you take a L, and then the trade works out in your favor, and you're like, wow, I should have given it a second chance, I should have did this, should have, would have, could have, right? And we usually find ourselves falling in that shoulda, woulda, coulda mindset, right? I would like to tell you, just take a minute, take a step back, breathe, and don't chase the markets, right? Don't chase the markets. Don't allow the markets to play on your emotions or play with your psychology, right? And I found myself being a victim to that, where I know better, right? I know better than to becoming a victim of the market, right? Or being seduced by the fact that, oh, it played out that time, so if I take an L on this trade here, usually all my trades do play out, right? So I'm gonna enter another position, that position goes against you, breaks through your stop loss, you're like, okay, I'm gonna enter right here, right? Breaks through that stop loss, and you're like, okay, I can't take it right here because I have to reverse. And then you fall into that mindset. No, you don't want to be that guy, right? You don't want to be that retail trader. So take a minute, take a step back, and then reapproach your market with a fresh mind. You know, close off the laptop, whatever you said, close off TradingView, close off MetaTrader, whatever it is, close the app, and just take a breather. The markets aren't running, so it's going to be there. Better opportunities will come to you. All right, and that's something I found myself, I had to tell myself after the market closing for last week. That was like Friday evening. I found myself telling myself that okay, right, you had a losing week, right? First losing week in months. So, you know, just take it in strides. It's not that bad. All right, it could have been less worse because I did make some careless mistake in terms of like my risk management and stuff like that. I fell out of my rules that I placed for myself. So yeah, it could have been less worse, but at the same time, it wasn't that bad, right? And we have this new week coming up, so we'll see what happens. All right, guys, but I just want to share that, that little piece of wisdom and drop that little knowledge for you guys, because I know there's a lot of people that's probably, this system that they have for themselves that working, back to back tested, proven working and stuff like that. When you run into a situation where you take a losing week, right, or just you're seeing on your MetaTrader red after red after red, negative number, negative number, negative number, could play on your psychology. It could make you like engage in some self-doubt with yourself, and you engage self-doubt, your confidence and stuff like that starts to dwindle a little bit, right? You just need to remember that the markets aren't guaranteed. You knew that already, and you have a system that works. So you just need to have patience with the market to give you a trade that works with your system. Don't chase it, don't rush it. Everything comes with time. All right, guys, so thank you very much for joining me in this video. Please subscribe if you found any of this information useful. If you'd like to see more content with my weekly analysis, me going through the trades in the VIP group and all that stuff. And I do actually have something else to announce, a giveaway that we are doing in the Discord group as well, available for all participants in the Discord, right? All members, whether you're VIP or you're just a regular member, regular member, it doesn't matter, right? You do have the same equal opportunity to win in this giveaway that I am doing. All right, guys, so thank you very much. Really do appreciate your patronage, and I do hope everybody has a great trading week. Peace.